Welcome to the proposal writing session. My name is Tracy Naidu and I'm a postgraduate research coordinator. So, you may ask, what exactly is a research proposal? Students often get confused between the topic submission and the proposal. The topic submission is essentially the motivation for your proposed study and is generally a brief document of no more than 2 typed pages. The proposal, on the other hand, is a structured plan for your study, indicating how you will conduct your study and the exact steps taken. The proposal is generally 20 to 25 pages in length, and this includes all compulsory appendices. These include the letter of permission from the organization under study, the draft covering letter to respondents, and the research instrument or instruments. The proposal essentially describes a problem and sets out a logical, systematic plan to solve it. You will need to be very practical when you are thinking about your research. You need to carefully think about what is doable and what isn't, especially given that you need to decide on a topic, write the proposal, and ultimately write up the final dissertation in a short space of 6 months. Also remember that people don't often like assisting others with research, so things won't always, and often don't, go according to plan. It is important to note that different disciplines, organizations, and institutions have different formats and requirements for writing a proposal. There are, however, several key components which must be included in every research proposal. For the Mancosa MBA proposal, the key components are a description of the research problem or background, the problem statement, the aim, objectives, and research questions, the significance of the study, a review of literature relevant to the research problem, a description of the proposed research methodology, and ethical considerations. Each of these areas will be discussed later in the presentation. You would have noted by now that the components of the proposal hinge to a large extent on the foundation which had been laid for the initial topic submission. In this regard, the research background, problem statement, aim, objectives, and research questions can be extracted from the approved topic submission, unless changes have since been made under your supervisor's guidance. Let us now go into greater details on the requirements for the Mancosa MBA proposal. It is expected that you will peruse the proposal submission template whilst constructing your own proposal. From a marker's perspective, it is imperative that every proposal submission includes a cover page with all relevant contact information and a table of contents. You will find examples of the cover page and table of content in the proposal submission template. Following the table of content, the introduction will commence. The introduction for the proposal should be short and concise, approximately 1 paragraph in length. Here, basic information about the proposal itself and what the reader can anticipate should be presented. As a general guideline, the introduction does not usually include quotations by other authors. Next, the research background will commence. The background provides a theoretical overview of the research. In this section, there should be an attempt to convey experts' view on the problem, issue, or opportunity under investigation. On this point, it is worth mentioning that all factual information should be supported by a relevant reference. For the proposal submission, the research background is not a lengthy section and should not exceed a page in length. Following the research background is the problem statement. In this section, the reason or reasons which compelled conduct of your research are explicitly stated. You will need to describe what needs to be solved and identify the most significant issues that require exploration. It is equally important that you are able to illustrate how your study seeks to address the issues which you have identified. Remember, if research is not done with some problem in mind, then why do it? Let us now go on to discuss the study aims, objectives, and research questions. Often, the terms aim and objective are used interchangeably. However, in research terms, the aim entails a statement of what the research sets out to achieve, while the objectives refer to more detailed aims. In other words, the objectives of the study refers to the steps you are going to take in order to achieve the aim of your study. When compiling your study objectives, reference to the SMART principle is often quite useful. Each letter in SMART refers to a different criterion for judging the relevance of research objectives. S meaning specific, M meaning measurable, A meaning achievable, R meaning relevant, and T meaning time specific. A common mistake that has been observed in terms of study objectives is that students often include objectives which are unrealistic and cannot be achieved through the conduct of primary research. Your research study, for example, cannot change government policies in regards to market regulation, nor can it increase staff productivity within your organization. Rather, in each of these instances, your study can propose recommendations to the relevant stakeholders on strategies or actions to address the issues identified. In regards to the research questions, these are merely guiding questions which direct the focus of the study. Do not confuse these with the actual questions which you will include in your questionnaire or interview. Additionally, it is vital that the research questions are directly aligned to the study objectives. Here, I would recommend that you simply convert your study objectives into direct questions. For example, if one of your study objectives were to explore the factors which hinder the performance of call center agents, the corresponding research question could be phrased as follows. What are the factors that hinder the performance of call center agents? Let us now go on to discuss the significance of the study. As the heading suggests, this section alludes to the importance and anticipated benefits of the study. Here, the focus should be on the business management relevance of your study. Although the study may be significant to you as a student because it contributes to the partial fulfillment of your MBA degree, this is not quite acceptable as a significance of the study. Rather, you will need to explicitly indicate to whom the research will be beneficial to. Perhaps it is beneficial to your company, your business associates, members of a particular grouping, or to a particular region or industry. Go on to illustrate how your study will be academically important. In other words, how does your study add to the existing body of knowledge on the subject matter? As I mentioned earlier, research is always done to solve a particular problem or address a particular gap, and it is done with a purpose in mind, not just for the sake of doing research. The next component of the research proposal is the literature review. Students often pose the question, why do I need to have a literature review? The literature review is not just a routine step taken to fulfill formal requirements. Rather, the literature review provides readers with a background for understanding current knowledge on a topic, and it essentially illuminates the significance for the new study. You need a good literature review for the following reasons. First, it demonstrates that you know the field. This means more than reporting what you've read and understood. Rather, you need to read it critically and write it in such a way that shows that you have a feel for the area, you know what the most important issues are, and their relevance to your work. Second, it justifies the reasons for your research. This is closely connected with demonstrating that you know the field. It is the knowledge of your field which allows you to identify the gap which your research could fill. However, it is not enough to find a gap. You have to also be able to convince your reader that what you are doing in your research is important and necessary. Finally, a good literature review allows you to establish your theoretical framework and methodological focus. Even if you are proposing a new theory or a new method, you are doing so in relation to what has been done before by other researchers. At the proposal phase, it is expected that 5 to 8 pages of relevant literature is presented. You will need to ensure that the literature presented is both current and relevant. In addition, the scope of the literature cited should be dictated by the study objectives. In other words, for each of your study objectives, there should be pertinent literature presented. This basically wraps up the literature review section. Let us now go on to the research methodology. The section is structured as follows. First, you will begin with the research methodology itself. Here, you will need to identify the methodology that underpins your research and provide a rationale for the chosen approach. Next, discuss the sampling methodology. Here, you will need to begin by defining the study population. In other words, who does a population comprise of? It is incorrect to cite a population of 1.2 million residents within a certain municipality, for example, when the study actually focuses on municipal staff only. Next, you will need to define sampling and discuss probability and non-probability sampling. In addition, the specific sampling technique to be used will need to be stated, and the sample size will need to be alluded to. In accordance with the Mancosa guidelines, if you are using the quantitative research approach, your sample size should be a minimum of 100 respondents. If you are using the qualitative research approach, your sample size should be between 8 to 12 respondents in total. After the sampling section, you will need to discuss the data collection instrument that will be used to collect primary data. Most commonly, the instruments that are used are either questionnaires, interviews, or both. In regard to data analysis, you will need to discuss how the data collected from the primary study will be analyzed. If the study is quantitative, consider the following. Will SPSS be used? Will descriptive or inferential statistics be used? Will both descriptive and inferential statistics be used? In the case of inferential statistics, refer to the specific tests and measures that you intend applying to the raw data. If the study is qualitative, refer to the specific type of analysis that will be used. For example, content analysis, thematic analysis, narrative analysis, and so forth. Also, describe how the data will be transcribed. Moving on to the pilot study, you will need to begin by defining the term pilot study. Thereafter, discuss how many respondents will be targeted for the pilot study. For a quantitative study, a pilot study conducted amongst 10 respondents will suffice. For a qualitative study, interview questions can be piloted using 1 or 2 respondents. The final component of the research methodology section alludes to ethical considerations. Here, a discussion on the following aspects should be considered, citing a relevant source. Ensuring participants have given informed consent, ensuring no harm comes to participants, ensuring confidentiality and anonymity, and ensuring that permission is obtained. When discussing the ethical considerations, it is important that you state exactly how these considerations will be maintained in your study. For example, anonymity may have been ensured by deliberately omitting personal details, such as the respondent's name and employee code, from the questionnaire. That's a wrap-up of the methodology section. Following the research methodology section are the 2 somewhat minor sections, which allude to the chapter organization and the proposed timetable for the research. In regards to the chapter organization, this basically alludes to the content of each chapter of the dissertation. I would advise that you make reference to the salient features of each chapter rather than merely restating the subheadings for each individual chapter, which can be quite monotonous for the reader. In regards to the proposed timetable for the research, this is basically a schedule stating exactly when the research begins and when it ends. Ideally, you will need to devise a timetable in consultation with your dissertation supervisor to ensure that the deadlines are agreed upon. Finally, the proposal should conclude with the bibliography and all relevant appendices. Just to reiterate what was said earlier, the appendices include the letter of permission from the organization under study, the draft covering letter to respondents, and the draft research instrument or instruments. In some cases, you may be required to include an informed consent form. However, this is completely context dependent. It must be noted that the proposal does not include a conclusion. This is due to the fact that the study has not yet been conducted, and therefore the outcomes of the study cannot be predicted. This brings us to the end of the proposal writing presentation. I trust that the session has addressed some of your concerns in regards to proposal writing. Best of luck with the construction of your own proposal.